Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Thursday night. You guys have been hot and heavy in free agency, so we're going to help cool it off a little bit and talk some rookies. First and foremost, it's going to look a little different tonight. The guy next to me is not Kraig. It is Paul. But if you have questions from tonight, hit Kraig up. I'm sure he'll be watching and excited to answer whatever questions you have. And then on the other side of me, we got an even more special guest. We have one of our esteemed evaluators. So on rookiedraftguide.com, the site that every video you watch me spew rookie information at, we have guys that are behind the scenes evaluating, not just myself and Paul and Kraig and some of the guys, but Joe Ohio State Kidder is one of our evaluators. So he is going to join us tonight. He's going to talk rookies. For those of you in the community, you'll know him as one of the Ohio State guys, and he will gladly tell you it in every conversation he has with you. But we're going to have him on tonight. We're going to talk rookies. So, if anybody bet on me saying Ohio State first, then you guys would have won. And yes, sorry, Kraig, the video for Joe has been a little choppy, so we've got his picture up. If the video does work, it will pop up, but we'll see what happens. So first and foremost, Joe, we are glad you're here tonight. How are you, sir?
Wide receivers with you and Paul.
Well, good. We are glad that you are here, and hopefully it'll be as entertaining as I anticipate it to be. Paul, how are you, sir?
I want to throw the laptop outside. Skype is frustrating. Work week's been long, but hey, the week's almost over, and yeah, we're talking football. So that's always. How about you?
I cannot complain. Obviously, Monday was a dumpster fire of an episode, so I do apologize for anybody who tried to watch our Monday stream. I have spent most of this week reinstalling Windows and getting things set back up, so hopefully tonight goes a little bit smoother, although we do have Skype, and Skype will never truly work the way it should because Skype hates its users. So we will do our best to keep this thing running and having a good time with it tonight. We're going to start with some news and notes because obviously, like I said, free agency. It's here. We're finally starting to see a little bit of movement with the wide receivers, not the big name ones. Those guys seem to be waiting patiently for money that isn't there to show up. But we do have some other guys that have made some movement. And because it's a wide receiver show, we're going to talk about them. So obviously you guys would have heard about, but the Jets have signed a few wide receivers. So they got Corey Davis. They got Keelan Cole. They lost Rashod Bateman. He went to Detroit. Obviously, New England landed a few guys, which happened early on in free agency. Emmanuel Sanders signed with Buffalo. A.J. Green went to Arizona. There's a lot of names and moving pieces that have gone on. So, Joe, I'll start with you. From a fantasy perspective, how do you feel about the free agent moves that have happened? Is there a wide receiver that you're kind of targeting after this has happened? And just kind of give me your overall feelings about it.
Denzel Mims is the one I'll be targeting the most with Corey Davis on the other side now. I want to see what Christian is, but I definitely think boost Mims' value if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, Mims, you won't hear any hate from us on Mims. I believe I can speak for Paul in saying that we both like Mims quite a bit, even last year as a rookie. What about you, Paulie? What do you think about this free agent class, and is there anyone you're targeting from it?
If I'm in the upper half of the league and I own my own late second, AJ Green would be interesting. I mean, he moved on to a clearly better situation with a clearly better franchise the last 50 years. So I like him. Just he has Hopkins on the other side, and he's not going to be force-fed targets, but he shouldn't be seeing the opposition's number one corner on every snap anymore. Like I said, if you're investing a late second, or if it's a super flex, a super late second, early third into him, he'd be someone I'd be looking at for getting basically free, and he should be available in most leagues.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, his time in Cincy ended with a dud, so you can probably get him quite cheap. For me personally, and I was saying it for anybody that watched Rick's stream during the day today, where he's doing the attempt at the top shots. I had said that this free agent period has made me. I mean, there's been a lot of movement, which is great. I love to see trades and I love to see things happening and in the league trying to get better. But it really hasn't been anything exciting. Like none of the moves made me go, "Oh yeah," I mean, and maybe the Juju and Galladay, maybe some of those do get exciting, but it's not been a very exciting free agent period. Although Arizona has made some smart moves, trading for Hudson and doing some different things to bolster the offensive line as needed. Keep Kyler Murray upright, let him make some things happen. So I can't argue that either. If I'm going to go for somebody though, I kind of like the Will Fuller to Miami situation, more so because I just don't like what Miami has at wide receiver. But you have to wonder if it's Tua as the shot caller, is that really going to be all that good of a fit? But that would be the piece that I would put my chip on as so far in free agency, a guy that I'm at least moderately interested in. I wouldn't be much higher than a second though for him, and I know that won't get him anywhere. People still love Fuller. I mean, for whatever reason, he has produced at some point. So,
you're not excited about the Brett Perriman to Detroit?
I'm sure his dad is. That made me rethink of my days with his dad in Detroit. I'd rather his dad back more than Rashad. I mean, Rashad's been okay, but I still, and I put out. I went on and did some, kind of some simulation mocks of what I would do if I were drafted for Detroit, and I still drafted, Seth Williams and Tylan Wallace. Like I was still loading up on wide receiver in the draft. So,
I mean, I went home and played Madden '93 and saw that
Brett
Perriman shine, just work on through.
Man, that was the golden days for Detroit's wide receivers. I mean, that was the best wide receiver group we'd had. Johnny Morton, Herman Moore, Brett Perriman. I mean, that group in the mid-'90s. Like, if we'd have had a quarterback that could throw the ball, not named Scott Mitchell or Rodney Peete, we probably would have been a lot more successful and not had to rely on Barry to win us games every week. So, wow, it is what it is. So that's that. I mean, those are kind of the big news and notes at the moment. We are still waiting for, T.Y. Hilton and Juju and Galladay. Galladay's had interviews. He was with the Giants, talking to the Giants. There's rumors he talked to the Bears. Miami has a standing offer, but from what I've heard, it's not really a great offer. So Galladay's not jumping on it. I mean, it'll be interesting to see where these guys go because they're kind of the names that everyone was expecting to be kind of the hot names, and there's just no market. I mean, right now, Curtis Samuel, I think, is probably – oh, no. Corey Davis, I think, is making the most of these guys right now. I think he's at like 12 or 12.5 million per season. I think Curtis Samuel's right behind him. So
I think outside of Oakland, I think it's really interesting how teams have said, hey, we're going to value line over the skill positions, and it's really showing through. It's just a lot easier to find the skill positions than it is line.
Well, and the market is so empty with linemen. I mean, there's only been a few that have been signed, and all that's left now is, like Riley Reef and guys that are thinking about retiring. So I completely agree with the idea of spending on the offensive linemen and find your skill position guys in the draft. I mean, if need be. All right. So, go ahead, Joe.
I will say this. Galladay is trending number 1 today by Bengals fans on Twitter because we have a 1-year offering on him. So have fingers crossed.
He would immediately step in and be your guys' 1. I mean, Tyler Boyd can be your big slot and move around the formation, and T. Higgins can be on the other side. And if you could figure out a way to spend all your draft picks on offensive linemen, that might be a good thing. Because I like your defense. I mean, I think it was crazy to lose Carl Lawson for Trey
Yeah,
Hendrickson, but
bad.
otherwise, I think it's a good defense.
Yeah, spending money on Hendrickson was not smart.
Well, it seemed
He's
like we
average.
couldn't get Lawson, so now we've got to overpay to get Hendrickson.
Yeah, like it wasn't smart.
No, not the greatest move. I mean, they're both high motor guys though now. I mean, Hubbard and Hendrickson are at least going to give you everything they got on every snap, which will be fun to watch. I mean, I don't know. I think Lawson's would be a better producer long term, but so so that's it. That's the big news and notes, at least for wide receivers. And I would remind anybody who's watching, RotoHeat.com, the guys are pumping out articles on the regular of every free agent that makes fantasy relevant sense. Everybody. I was pumping out articles in IDP land last night. I don't remember now. The days just mixed together at this point. But, RotoHeat.com is what we got for you if you want to keep up to date with fantasy relevant free agent signings and anything that happens there. The guys are doing an amazing job, Sully and Thomas and Matt Brown. He's still newer to me, so I'm still working on remember his name. If you're listening to Matt Brown, you're doing a great job. And everybody else. I mean, there's so many, Jay Wall and everybody. So we love all the guys that are working their butts off and doing everything to help keep things going. But that's not what you're tuning in tonight. You want to talk rookie wide receivers. I know I do. This is a fun class. This is probably one of the better classes we've seen in a while. There's some really talented guys. So I want to start it off by just kind of getting your guys' kind of favorite player in this draft. It doesn't have to, you don't have to say the Waddles, Chases, Smiths of the world. Just the guy that you've fallen in love with through the evaluation process. And Joe, because you're our esteemed guest, we will let you go first. Just throw out a name of a guy that you just absolutely fell in love with during this process.
I will say, as I've dug deeper into it, a guy that I will be targeting probably higher than people is Diami Brown from North Carolina. Just the more and more I watch on him, I just like his game even more. And I think he can be a very solid pro and fantasy relevant.
Paulie, what do you think about Diami Brown, the 6'1" wideout from UNC?
I wrote that he's a functional prospect, but he doesn't have one thing that separates him on either side. I mean, he can kind of do it all, but it's not like he's going to succeed in the NFL because of the speed or because of the height. I think he's around 5 to 7 prospect. But if he ends up heading in the 3rd or 4th, okay. If somebody's looking for a floor receiver, I can see it. I don't see much of a ceiling.
I love his fight. So when I was looking through my notes just now, I noted multiple times that this dude is a battler. That he will go up and attack the ball. He does a good job in just fighting the corner for the ball. So I think. If a team's looking for somebody who's, I don't want to say gritty, but that's probably the best word I could think of, and a guy that could be put all over the formation because he's got more than enough play speed. He may not be a team's deep threat. You're probably going to need somebody a little bit faster in that category, but he can do a lot of the different things, and especially the way that UNC kind of spreads the field out. That he's had to do varying roles, whether it's kind of slot and the outside. So Brown is a guy that I think if you want somebody who, has that floor that you're pretty confident, I think he'll be a team's top 3 wide receiver early on in his career. He'll probably be the number 3 receiver on a team to start until he gets worked into the system. But I think he's got some fantasy relevant potential for sure. I think he's a guy that a team could fall in love with just because he's so tough. All right, Mr. Pauly, who is somebody that you've fallen in love with during this process?
I mean, outside of Chase, but I mean, he's just head and shoulders in the fridge.
Yep.
ahead of everybody else. I mean, he's the clear
We agree.
1-1 there. The guy who I've been loving lately is Duane Eskridge out of Western Michigan. He reminds me of Steve Smith, Panthers receiver, all those years ago. Top end speed and the initial speed just separate him. He kind of reminds me also of like a DJ Moore, where he's not super fast, he's not super big, but the combination of it, I liked his hands, and I like the fact that despite the fact that he's a little shorter, he wins the 50-50 balls that they throw up. I think he might end up in the first round of the actual draft. But if he's a little shorter than what the sites have him at, maybe he falls a little bit. But I guess, what do you guys think about?
I mean, after the
him?
Senior Bowl, the hype train was going off the rails. I mean, not that the Senior Bowl had anybody stand out other than him, but everybody seemed to be all hot for him. I think he fits well as a team's, kind of like Diami Brown. I think he fits in as well as a team's number 3, kind of Swiss Army knife's probably the best word I could think of, where you can move him along the formation, have him be a slot, have him do some jet sweep type stuff, because he's got that quickness that reminds me of Golden Tate, but it isn't Golden Tate like in his other abilities. Like, watching him stop and kind of juke guys out of their shoes, like you see some things on tape on him that are, I think, really interesting and really intriguing. I think that the toughest thing for him is the class he's in, because there's just so many talented wide receivers in it that it'll be interesting to see. It'll be very telling where he gets drafted, for sure. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I agree with Paul. I like how he catches the ball away from his body, and I like his. Yeah, I know. I like the speed, moved everywhere, and he can definitely make plays. My only concern is, he's like a lot of the guys in this. They're better in space. They're quick receivers, and he does get brought down by a single defender a lot of times. So I just wonder what his yak will be in the NFL.
Fair point. Unfortunately, you're both agreeing, so that's
I
weird.
saw that also. Yeah, I saw that also. Yak is very much a plus for him. He's not going to be someone that gets it 50 yards down the field a lot. He's going to have a lot of 8-yard receptions that become 30. For as often as you can have a 30-yard reception, I guess.
All right, Wilson, it's good to see you, buddy. Wilson.
As long as he gets space.
Wilson.
Oh, no, I'm good. I was just saying, as long as he gets in space.
Okay, so we got a couple questions. One is a fun one. One is an interesting one. So Wilson over on YouTube asks, with all the moves of these free agent wide receivers this week, how far do some of the top rookie wideouts fall? It almost seems like O-lineman becomes the next big run after quarterbacks. Does Philly get to pick the first wide receiver? So what's Philly?
Where do they
pick? Yeah, about to say 6th or 7th. Or no, Detroit's 7th. So yeah, they're 6. So Jacksonville, we know how they're going. The Jets could go a couple different ways. The Dolphins picked up Will Fuller, plus having Devontae Parker and Isaiah Ford and Preston Williams. Sorry, I was forgetting his name. Then you got the Falcons at 4, who basically need everything, but just re-signed Matt Ryan, to what basically means he's tied to them for another 2 years. Then you got the Bengals at 5, who desperately need the offensive lineman, so we know they're probably not going wide receiver. And then the Eagles, who need a lot of things. It's an interesting question because the way that the wide receiver market's kind of been up and down, O linemen are a very hot commodity right now.
It would be a super Eagles selection in just outright selecting Davion Nixon at 6 and just being like, we build this thing with fat men and like they pound their fists on it. That's just how they make their selections. But sure. I mean, it doesn't really matter who picks between 2nd and 5th. You're going to have 3 quarterbacks off within probably 5 or 6 selections anyways. They actually seem like someone who might move back and select like the 3rd offensive lineman or something. But I mean, I could see it if they stuck at 6 and took Chase. I just don't think it'd be very smart, despite loving him.
Well, and with them taking Rager last year in the first round, some teams get a little nervous on drafting back to back. I mean, unless you're Detroit, then they'll just draft 100 wide receivers in a row that suck. So, for me, I feel like O lineman could have an early run because people are really starting to hype up Rashawn Slater and Penei Sewell, depending on how you feel about them. I could see a couple of linemen go in the top 10 just because there is such a need. Think about some of these teams that are playoff contenders or trying to be playoff contenders. O-line is their biggest problem. I mean, Joe's team has been fighting to try to find linemen for a while, and, they've got 2 or 3 that could be starters, but they still have 2 or 3 that could be needs, So looking at the guys in the top 6, I mean, yeah, the Eagles could be the first team to pick a wide receiver, but I also could see the Dolphins, if they stay at 3, pick a wide receiver. I mean, unless they.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Miami picked a receiver.
They have 2 firsts. What? In my mind, it's like they really can do whatever they want. They can go skill, and go wide receiver and running back in the first round, and I wouldn't hate it for them because, well, those would be some needs that they have. I mean, they could use some defensive help, but not really, not a ton. I mean, depending on how you feel about their linebacking core. They're the team that's kind of the wild card of this draft because they really can go a lot of different directions, and it wouldn't surprise me in the least.
As long as Miami plays that hybrid defense, though, it wouldn't surprise me if they just outright select Basham at number 3 and just move on. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, some people are hyped on Basham. I think he would probably. I don't know how he'd fit with their defense though. I mean, he's a really good edge rusher, but the way that they run that defense,
3-4 end.
Does he have the size?
They
to
just
3-4 end? What is he? 265? 270?
It's like
is
280.
I felt like he was smaller than that.
I mean, you'd be somewhat hoping, but I can see Richard Seymour there a little bit. And just saying, all right, we're playing a 4-3 or a 3-4, and you're just on the field.
So there you go, Wilson.
But
you got us down the rabbit trail of trying to predict things that we have no control over. Your answer is anything's possible. It's the NFL. There could be a run on any position at any given time. But Philly could be the first team to take a crack at receiver. And it wouldn't surprise me if Detroit took a receiver, although I really don't want them to. All right. So,
who knows? Jets and the Bengals historically screw up the first round every year.
Who knows?
Anything can happen.
All right. So our boy Kraig, who is not currently on the show, has a question. Thoughts on Michael Strachan from Charleston, Jonathan Adams Jr. from Arkansas State, or Jalen Darden from North Texas as a later pick? Darden is a guy who's been getting a little bit of a hype train going here. I haven't evaluated Michael Strachan, although I have heard a couple people mention him. Adams, if I remember correctly, he's the big kid from Arkansas State. He's like 6'2", 6'3", something like that. Let me look back through my notes. I have evaluated him. He could turn into a nice outside receiver, is what my notes say. Has the size and enough speed. But then, think of Arkansas State. I mean, I haven't really seen a lot come from Arkansas State. And then I have not evaluated Strachan. But Jalen Darden, though, is one that I have looked at as well, and I like him. He's a guy that I don't see him being drafted, though, but he's starting to get the hype train rolling. If he is, he's a day 3 pick. But he's more of he's a smaller guy like Eskridge. So, if you're looking at that size to be kind of your slot receiver, are you going to go Eskridge or are you going to go, somebody who's a little bit more unknown? I mean, you're probably going Eskridge. Right. So, Paul, we'll go to Joe. Joe hasn't got to talk much here recently. Joe, have you evaluated any 3 of these guys yet?
Darden is really the only one I've been able to dig into. He fits, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but that mold in this year's class of the smaller speed. He's another guy that's dangerous in the vertical. And if he gets the ball in his hands, he's a home run threat. And I think some teams will find ways to get him in space and use that ability. And I don't know. I mean, if you have a...
Oh, he's chopping on us. And not chopping on us. All right, Paulie, what do you think about him?
I haven't watched film on any of the 3.
There you go. He's too busy studying offensive linemen.
That's right. I am through about the first 5 rounds of offensive line here. So once they get selected, at least someone's got
Kraig,
some notes.
Well, we won't ask you about any of these 3 then. So Kraig, I would say Darden is definitely a guy to target. The other 2, that'll be a tough one. I'm not the kid from Arkansas State I dug into, and I feel confident that if somebody takes him, he could try to develop. But at this point, you also have to remember how many receivers get drafted in the league every year. I mean, there's a ton of competition. So there wasn't anything specifically something that jumped off the page to me with the kid from Arkansas State. Other than that, I think he could develop if he had time, but that's a tough one. Jason says Terrace Marshall is the best value at his projected ADP. Yeah, I love Terrace Marshall. He's one of my he kind of gives me the. I'm not comparing him to T. Higgins, but I have the same feelings about him that I had T. Higgins last year. So I will be targeting Terrace Marshall because I targeted T. Higgins like crazy and hated that he went to Cincy, but then getting paired with Joe Burrow, I was pretty excited about that. So. I love T. Higgins, and I love Terrace Marshall. Marshall's big. He's 6'2", 6'3". He's speedy. He can do a lot of things, and once he got his chance, I think he, with as crazy as last year was for LSU, I think he looked really good, even with the crap offense he was kind of stuck dealing with. So, Jason, I would agree. Terrace Marshall's a guy that I would definitely be targeting.
It was interesting how inconsistent he was.
You're inconsistent.
No, Joe's internet's inconsistent.
Joseph.
But it was interesting. He was a high recruit, and then his freshman year he looked awesome, and then sophomore year he ran deep only and didn't look like an NFL prospect. And this last year he showed footwork. Like he's got a super high ceiling and a super low floor. Joe, how do you feel?
There's Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase had Joe Burrow thrown to him. Kind of got buried, and I think he showed really well. I mean, he doesn't have any great traits, but he's just really good in a lot of things. I don't like how he lets so many get inside of that. I don't have any knocks.
There you go. So, Jason, smart move. Get him. All right, our boy Ryan. What's up, buddy? Glad you're here. I hold the 2-3 in a 1 QB Dynasty PPR rookie draft. While I love the top 5 wide receivers in the 1A, 1B tier, my pick isn't high enough to nab one. Who is a wide receiver in the St. Brown, Elijah Moore range you like? So Picking early second round, I'm guessing it's a 12 team. So I'm going based on the idea of it being 12 team, Ryan. Hopefully, if it is. Um, Terrace Marshall's a guy I'm targeting there. I think he could easily be an early second round pick. He might slide into the back half of the first, but I don't know that that's. It's hard for me to imagine that with the tight end class and the running backs and the quarterback. At least one quarterback in a one QB league will be drafted in the first round because everybody loves the golden boy. And with probably 4 to 5 receivers ahead of Terrace Marshall, thinking Waddle, Chase, Smith, Bateman, potentially Rondale Moore, depending on how you feel about him. I mean, Terrace Marshall should be there. That'd be a guy I would target. Seth Williams is another one. Those two would be two targets for me there in the early second round. What about you, Joe? So if you're at the 2-3 and and it's in a 12 team, so it's pick 15. What wide receivers there do you project or at least think that you like at that position?
The two I would be targeting the most, like you said, is Terrace Marshall and then St. Brown. What they both have to offer, and I want to get St. Brown in as many leagues as I can because I have high hopes for him.
All right, Paulie, what do you think?
I would be looking for Jalen Rager or Denzel Mims. The owners of them might have soured enough that you can flip the selection for them, and I don't love anyone that you can have at that selection. If Seth Williams ultimately falls that far, okay. I don't think he's going to fall that far, so you might have to move up, or you might just want to flip the selection for a second or third year receiver who looks more ready, like Mims. But I've been saying for about a month now, that's the range that I don't want because I don't see the value in the rookie selections. I would rather have either firsts or fourths and just move on. But if you can get Rager or Mims for that selection, that's your move.
So there you go, Ryan. You got a few names to choose from, or you can trade the pick, which unfortunately trading the pick right now might be tough. That tends to be something where you wait till the draft because people get all hyped up come draft time, and they really do. I tend to see guys overpay when you get to the draft. So if you're in a situation where you're thinking that you want to trade the pick, that's the time to do it. And really, either way, wait till your draft, see who's there, and otherwise, there you go. So, good luck. Hopefully, it works out. If you need help, let us know. Discord, Facebook community, we're all over the place. You can Twitter Kraig, and he will answer as well. His Twitter handle's underneath, not his face. All right, so Jason, with NFL teams trying to get the next Tyreek, who is the best comparable in this draft? The next Tyreek. Well, I mean, I'm going to have to go with Jaylen Waddle. I just don't know if, Tyreek's a unique dude. Like, just because he's super fast, you can do anything with him. That you really don't. You can't do that a bunch of times. But if you're looking for somebody who's a speed freak that can take the top off the defense, for me, it's Waddle. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, hate to agree with you guys so much, but it's absolutely. I don't know if you can ever really duplicate Tyler. Just the things he does and the way he plays on the field is just so fast. But Jaylen Waddle has that quickness. He's a very good guy, and he actually surprisingly wins a lot of 50-50 balls too when needed. I am a little worried about him getting bumped off the line easy. I hope he can learn the hand fight a little better. But I really like. He's my number 3, right?
All right, Paulie. What about you?
And besides Duane Eskridge. I mean, Tyreek Hill's interesting because you can look at it from is this someone selected not in the first 50 selections? Or you can look at it as Tyreek Hill is awesome. So I'm going to go with the cheaper option of either Eskridge, or if you want the more expensive option, if Devonta Smith falls to pick 8 or later, okay. I think there's enough of a floor there. I was never one of the you should be selecting him second, third, fourth, fifth overall. But if he starts making it to 8, 9, 10 range, yeah, okay. I mean, Tyreek Hill's interesting because he basically went undrafted and now he's one of the best receivers in football. So I mean, it's an interesting comp there.
Well, and people are always trying to find that guy, whatever that mold was, whatever the prototypical name is, and right now it's Tyreek. But when you look at the draft class, you've got 3 really dynamic speed type receivers that project to be kind of a gadgety guy. So, we've got Waddle, we've got Eskridge, you could throw Elijah Moore in there, Kadarius Toney, but they just don't. There's things missing from their game that Tyreek has. I mean, and that's where it comes in at. It's like, well, yeah, these guys are close, but they're still missing something. So, that those are the guys that have that big playability that also could, be used in a lot of ways. Yeah, we got a lot of the chats. Waddle more. So, Matt said, "Oh, go ahead."
I find it interesting how the normal Thursday shows the Devi show, and that was asked, and we still haven't hit Rondale Moore and some of the other names. It's amazing how much some of the top 5 receivers from last year's Devi have just missed.
Well, but I mean, Rondale Moore, for me, the biggest thing has always just been the injury issue. But Rondale Moore is insanely dynamic. And if 5 years down the road he's one of the better receivers in fantasy, I wouldn't be surprised. But things have happened the last few years to hurt his stock that I just can't promise that. So I'm not going to hang my hat on him. But I do love the player. I mean, I think he's a really nice option. So
Wallace was another one that people had in the top 5, and just now we're talking top 5 rounds. Like,
I know that's a tough one. That's why Devi's such a crapshoot.
Such a crapshoot.
All right, Matt's asking, what do we think about Jamar Chase? Some film guys are getting too cute and saying that he can't get separation or run routes, so they say he sucks. And he says, any thoughts? My thoughts are those people are wrong. There's no problem with Jamar Chase's game. He can do everything you want. He is a true number one. A lot of what I've been hearing is recency bias because Jamar Chase took a season off. A lot of people are starting to try to find, problems. And Jamar Chase is a stud. I mean, you take him as one of your top picks and be happy about it for the next, 10 years as he's dominating. Joe, what do you think about Chase?
Everything to be a team's number one, a fantasy number one, elite route runner, great at getting separation in my eyes, catches the ball well with his hands. I mean, he's a threat to take to the house solely for the fact of his vision on the field. I would say if there's any knock against him, it would be he's not going to run the fastest. But in the game, that's not going to make a big difference.
All right, Paulie, what say you about Mr. Chase?
Trayvon Diggs was probably a top 20-ish corner when healthy this year in the NFL. Chase ran circles around him for most of that game. How he moves his hips is not human. He can just swivel and run routes, and if you want to say he doesn't have the most long separation, all right, that's maybe a speed thing, but he goes up and gets it. I'd be selecting him first overall in basically any non-superflex format.
I
right
cannot
now.
argue if that's the direction you want to go because he is the best receiver in the class. So hopefully that helps, Matt. I don't know why. I don't know how a guy watching his film could poke holes and things like that. I mean, he's everything you want in a receiver. All right, so next up. So let's talk about. I'm just going to grab a name here. We haven't said much about who's one of the top receivers in the class. Joe, what's your take on Rashod Bateman?
I actually have Rashad Bateman as mine. It didn't start out that way, but the more I watched, I really like him. I like how he extends his arms away from his body to secure the ball. He's a very smooth route runner, and he is not afraid to come over the middle if he needs to make the catch, and he will take the hit and secure the ball. I wonder how FL teams will do keeping him on the field because he's not really the guy to engage on blocks, and so I don't know if that'll affect his. And he has a. You think he's just going to take it to the house on any given play?
What about you, Paulie?
Quick beat for a receiver of that size, and if you want to say the Exos 40 was a little fast, yeah, okay. But even if he runs a 4.45, that's going to be fast enough for his height and weight there. I think he ultimately goes in the first round of the actual draft, which is going to lock him into a top 5 to 6 non-super flex selection for him. I really think we should discuss more athletes that we disagree on because I know that we all want to see a fight on this episode.
I have had. I'm about
I
to
don't
say
like this. I don't like this much.
I have had
agreeing.
comments of why are we seeing a pillow fight when we signed up for a a battle. So
Olave sucks. There, let's go.
Paul and I are co-owners for a.
Well, all I'm
right.
saying is we're talking about receivers that are actually going to get drafted in the 2021
Yeah, it's
draft.
a Thursday night show. It's a Thursday night show. We can cheat a little bit.
All right, let me see if I can find a receiver that. Let's see if we can get you guys to disagree on somebody. I'm going to go deeper into the draft.
Terry.
Oh,
Terry.
Tamarion Terry. You want to talk him? All right, let's talk Tamarion Terry. Failed receiver for the Florida State college football team. Because who knows? They might cancel that team name. All right, Joe, what do you think about Terry?
I like his size. He's a big guy. He kind of reminds me. I'm not a Florida State expert, but he reminds me a lot of Auden Tate, who was with the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't know if I think he catch the ball a little better than Tate, but I have seen a lot of drops on films, which just worries me. I mean, I don't know if he'll ever be fantasy relevant at all, and he might not be higher than wide receiver. I mean, surprisingly, Florida State hasn't been relevant in any of these skill positions for other than 10 years.
Outside of Cam Akers, yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's thought of higher than Zeke right about now. But anyways, he's got a pretty high floor, or I'm sorry, the high ceiling but low floor. True split end. He essentially only has the go route though, which is a concern. Despite having the size, he's a real wuss across the middle when he runs a slant. If you're looking at a high upside in the end of the third, okay. But yeah, I'm just looking for guys that people don't agree on because we don't want to have this agree fest. It's not fun.
Yeah, I like Terry. I mean, like deep in a draft, I would take him and stash him on a taxi squad just to see if something happens. Because I think my biggest issue with him is just his attitude. I mean, it seemed like no matter who was coaching, he was having trouble with somebody. So I don't know if that was his biggest issue that got him kicked out and really sent him packing, or if there was something else. Obviously, we know route tree needs to be more defined. He rounded off a lot of routes. Anything that I watched, it seemed like he wasn't crisp. He had his fair share of drops, but he also had his fair share of big plays where you're like, oh, okay, here we go. So I want consistency, but the tough thing is he really needs to go to a team where he could sit behind somebody and learn a little bit because he needs quite a bit of development. Okay, so let's find somebody else. Let's find somebody you guys don't agree on. How about let's talk Amari Rogers from Clemson. He had a little bit of a pop after his pro day because he could very well be a running back or a wide receiver. Joe, what do you think about Amari Rogers?
He fits that mold. I mean, it just feels like a nonstop repetitive cycle. A lot of these guys fit that smaller mold, smaller guys. I know he did play running back a little bit at Clemson, had to play receiver, especially because of the Justin Ross spine issue. He's a talented guy. He's probably a little gadget, but I do think he'll make the team as maybe a return man, which will give him opportunities to get the ball and see if they can make game-breaking plays. But I don't know. It's not somebody that I would take a risk on drafting. Just I don't think I'd end up using.
Paulie, what do you think?
I think we should select someone else because, I agree with them with those sentiments. He's got yak because he will somewhat run you over, but if you throw the ball up, he ain't going to catch it. He has to have things schemed open for him. Like I said, we need to pick someone else so that we can have a fight about
Paul,
this.
I'll let you handle it. You pick somebody you guys are going to fight over because obviously I failed miserably at stirring the pot.
Let's go with Austin, not Sammy Watkins. JUCO transfer. You didn't see squat before this season, and there's a reason he was in the JUCO route, but there's also a reason why he might end up in the second or third round also, just because he does have the speed and the hips that his cousin has. He's really smooth.
Didn't he run like a crazy fast 40 the other day?
I did not see that, but I have him in the 4.55 to 4.6 range in my notes. If he ran faster than that, then that would make me think that he's a lot higher. He wasn't the smartest athlete on the field, but I think that can be worked on, especially when he didn't have the D1 coaching. So your Austin Watkins 40
I was just trying to look up and see if I could find.
I was going to say, if he ran something really fast, Austin Watkins 40 time.
While we're doing that, Joe, what do you think about Watkins?
I'm with Paul on the speed thing. I have down on my notes that he lacks that deep speed. He lacks the second gear to get down the field in a hurry. I do like how he battles. He doesn't shy away from physicality, and he uses his frame well to shield off defenders to make the catch. So, I think he has a lot to prove, but I think he's a capable guy.
Still looking for his pro day numbers. I'm not seeing it. I thought I heard he ran a fast pro day, but I could be wrong.
Well, I'm gonna hit up the world's worst plays.
Oh my.
Twitter.
Good luck with that.
See if that helps. Yeah.
So my take on Watkins is I'm pulling up my notes on him so that I can speak on him. Developmental guy. Wasn't really super intriguing until this year. Was he at UAB? He's a decent route runner. Does a good job with his routes. with his body controlling his routes. A plus separator. Let's see here.
It's really hard on some of these where it's not the D1 skill set on the other side of the field.
Oh yeah, I mean,
also. You have more.
well, and
dominance.
that's what we've said that on the Thursday show plenty of times. If you're a smaller school guy, you have to really take over the competition and prove, and he looked good at UAB last year. We didn't see a ton of big play ability in 2020, but there was some of that in 2019. So because I didn't see a lot of it last year, I would be concerned about it. But, he's not a guy I'm jumping on very early. He's quite a bit ways down my list of my kind of top, 20 wide receivers right now. So not somebody I'm super intrigued about. I didn't see a 40 time for him. I thought I heard it, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
I'm not seeing it on
I don't see UAB's pro day number, so I'd have to dig around a little bit more.
Twitter.
Somebody in the chat sees it, feel free to post it, and anybody watching after the fact, I'm sure you will correct us. You guys do a good job fact checking and letting us know what we missed. Okay, so chat wants to know about Elijah Moore, Anthony Schwartz. We've talked a little bit of Elijah Moore, but Joe, I'll give you the first final words. What's your thoughts on Moore and Schwartz?
Schwartz is actually somebody I haven't dug into as much right now. Or, he's a run threat. I actually really like Elijah. I've moved up more and more.
Kraig is
looked
on the
at
show.
him.
Throwing out the puns.
He gets great separation, and, he has amazing and any chance he touches the ball is a touchdown. I mean, he chance to make big plays. He does down by single defenders a little more easy, and defenders may pose a problem. But I actually am like more and more each day.
Thanks, Kraig 2.0 with those puns. Puns on point tonight. Paulie, what do you think about him?
They're basically the same player. They're both essentially slot-only types. They have decent enough feet to get open, but I think they're in the round 6 to 7 to undrafted range. I mean, who knows? The XFL is opening up next year, hopefully. Maybe they can have the job there. They just... Schwartz has more top end speed. Moore has more quick feet, but he doesn't have the top end speed. And when you're not going to be the ideal size, I think it really limits them, to be honest. I don't like either one.
Yeah, I'm not super high on either, but I think they both have potential because they can be bigger play threats from the slot receiver position, but they are very much pigeonholed into having to play inside. They're not outside guys, and at their size, they shouldn't be. So there you go. That's it. We answered your questions. We talked about some stuff. These two gentlemen had a pillow fight on the show. Joe, we appreciate you hanging out. As always, thank you for your evaluations and your takes. It is a blast, and I'm glad that you're on the team. Paul, it's a pleasure as always for you.
I'm glad we got through this without discussing a suck eye.
Or, we talked FSU. Well,
hey, next year, I'm on this stream next year. Wide receivers, we got plenty of them.
That's right. We can discuss the team that I drafted for you.
I'm about to say, we have Garrett Wilson, so what do you expect? I mean, he has to be in the conversation.
Number 1, Garrett Wilson. Number 2 overall, Chris Olave. I mean, top 2 receivers next year.
I want to be in whatever league you're in drafting Chris Olave that high because I'm going to win it all.
I mean, Terrell Pryor was in the league as a receiver. I mean,
yep.
That's what you're looking at. Justin Fields in 5 years.
Name Florida. State player recent memory.
There you go. All right, so Cosmic Teo says go Bucks. So obviously Joe's got some supporters on here. I have never seen an FSU fan. Never seen an FSU fan on the stream to support Paulie. So you're on an island out there, man. Thank you guys as always for hanging out. The chats have been live tonight. Y'all have been having a good old time, and I appreciate that. We will be back next week, and I believe we're wrapping up rookie talk with tight ends next week, and it'll be a fun one because, well, we've got a lot of tight ends in this class that are good. So it'll be a good episode. We'll have a good time with it. Monday night we'll be back talking something IDP related because off the top of my head I don't remember what the show is. If you need anything, RotoHeat.com, RookieDraftGuide.com. If you haven't hit the like and the subscribe and the notification icon, all the stuff you see me say in all the videos, you should do that now. Right now. If you're watching this at a later date, thank you for watching. If you guys are watching now,